Welcome back to the Sync My Music podcast. I hope you're all having a fantastic week, being very productive, I hope, with your music, cranking out a bunch of tracks, maybe putting together an album to submit to your very first library, or if you are partnered with a library, hopefully you are busy cranking out very highly licensable tunes for them and serving their needs. And this week's video, or I should say podcast, I'm so used to still being in YouTube land. This week's podcast is going to be a bit of a bummer in a way, because I really do want to probably weed out a lot of you that are listening right now. And why would I want to do that? Shouldn't I want to have as many people listening to my podcast and watching my videos as possible? Not really. And the reason being is that sync licensing, what I have focused on, and it's basically all that I teach here through my videos and through my podcast, is not for all producers. It is a very niche, specialized field, and it's not really even in the music business. It's really more centered in the TV and film entertainment business. It's just that we are the music suppliers for that side of the industry. So it really does stand alone in terms of it doesn't really fit into the music business, and it doesn't really follow the same sort of protocols or have the same kind of considerations that you would have if you were just putting out original music, trying to get downloads, touring, merchandise, all the things you traditionally do as an artist, right? So in this video, I want to weed out a lot of you that actually are probably not a good fit for sync licensing. Now, why do I want to do that? Well, as an educator, as a provider of knowledge and insights and a pathway for how to do this to get to your full-time income through sync licensing, I don't want to waste any of your time. And so what I don't want to ever hear is that one of you find my podcast, find my videos, follow along with what I'm doing, and then a year into that, you email me and let me know that it was really not a good fit for you. You wasted a lot of time. You wish you had known that this was involved, whatever that is. In sync licensing, you would have probably never, spent that time or effort trying to get into this business had you known this is really what it's like to succeed in this business. And these are the skills or the expectations you should have had from day one. And so I don't want to get that email from any of you in a year that you basically wasted a lot of time consuming my content. That's not going to feel good for me. I'm not going to be excited or happy about that. So let's have this conversation now. Let's basically just be frank about what it's really going to take for you to succeed. And I want to make sure that if any of these, I have basically 5 qualities, that if you have these 5 qualities, it's probably not going to be a good fit for you. I want you to just basically bow out now. So after watching or listening to this podcast, if you feel like this resonates with you and I'm really describing you with one of these 5 qualities, you do need to do some soul searching and do a little bit of a look in the mirror to decide whether or not you really want to commit to this business, because it is not going to be easy and it's not going to come fast. And if you feel that this is not going to be something that could immediately fit for you in terms of you can't see yourself evolving and progressing and growing in this field, I would honestly, as an educator, even as somebody who thinks this is a great side of the business to be in, I would prefer that you don't get started, because I don't want you, again, to waste your time. So let's jump into some of these qualities that I feel either you need to have or you shouldn't have in order to succeed in sync licensing. So the number one is, you guys have probably know if you've watched any of my videos that I say this all the time, this is not a get-rich-quick operation. And if you expect results very quickly, and I mean, what is very quickly? Well, within a couple of weeks to a couple of months, in terms of you think that you could have full-time income in the TV film sync licensing industry even within 6 months, you're dreaming. I'm not saying that you can't get some really big, awesome, lucrative opportunities. I had one student who was a fairly established producer, jumped into sync licensing, and his first gig landed him a $20,000 upfront sync fee for a cereal commercial. So I'm not saying, and I don't want you to limit what you think is possible for yourself in this industry. But even with a $20,000 upfront sync fee, is that full-time income sustainable for years and years and years? No. It's a one-time gig. Great, awesome upfront money, maybe some back-end royalties, obviously you can look forward to, but that is not sustainable full-time income, okay? That's one gig. So I have always told producers that your timeline for success in terms of getting to that point where you feel financially stable enough to be able to not have to go do your day gig or not have to do independent contract work, whatever it is you're doing right now, that can take years, okay? It can be 2 years, it can be 5 years, it could even be longer than that. It really depends on how much you dedicate to this. It's really on you. It's basically, I've always said, your hustle equates to your success. So the more that you spend time improving your production, your mixing, your mastering skills, making sure you're doing your proper research when you partner with the libraries that you do partner with, to make sure you're not just having tracks collecting dust sitting on somebody's shelf, even though you put a lot of effort and energy into it. Obviously, making sure that you're delivering very licensable music, paying attention to the little details, how you title your tracks, delivering the alts, the stems, providing metadata if asked by your library. So all of these, there's so many of them, but making sure you're paying attention to the little details with that limited time that you do have in your studio, and making the best decisions that you possibly can. And when you make mistakes, as we all do, as I do, just make sure you don't make the same mistake twice, right? And always just learning from that, and always just giving yourself that critical feedback on yourself to realize that it's okay to not get everything right the first time. Lord knows I didn't. But the one thing that I did right was that I didn't continuously do the same thing over again and then get really frustrated because I wasn't seeing a different result. So obviously, always sort of self-correcting your path and making sure that you're staying on the most profitable and logical path for yourself. And everybody has their own unique way to navigate into this industry, even though I do tell you one small way to succeed in this business, which is partner with libraries, serve their needs, build your catalog. You have a different genre of specialty than I do. You're going to partner with a different library than I have. They're going to have different clients than the clients that I'm serving. So as you can see, it's going to be very tailored. It's going to be custom tailored to your particular opportunities and your particular strengths. So that's where you need to really kind of pay attention to what's happening in your career. If you're liking the results that you're getting, keep doing it. Double down on your efforts. If you're not, you need to course correct and try a different approach, okay? So that's the first thing. If you're expecting a paycheck within a couple of months and you can just, give the middle finger to your boss and say, bye-bye, I'm out of the door, don't get started, okay? This is a long-term business, and I always kind of equate it to essentially your musical 401k retirement plan. So if you contribute to a 401k and expect that you're going to strike it rich in the next couple of months with a 401k plan, you obviously were misled about what a 401k is, okay? So a 401k is a retirement plan where basically you contribute regularly from your paycheck and you basically earn dividends, interest. There's various different ways that you can obviously have those accounts grow. But the idea is that you don't expect to cash that out immediately. You are growing a long-term plan for retirement down the road. So your catalog in the sync licensing business is your 401k. So the quality and the quantity of tracks you have out there in the system circulating, potentially getting you placements, is going to be the strength of your royalties, of your placements, and obviously of your long-term income that you can count on for years and years and years. So you just have to start from day one with that expectation that this is not a get-rich-quick operation or something that's going to provide you immediate results. This is about building a career that could last you 20, 30, 50 years, even longer. So this is about basically creating a legacy for yourself and something that can really support you quarter after quarter. As you know, you if you don't know, you do get those quarterly payments from ASCAP, BMI, or whatever your PRO is. So that is what we're shooting for in this business. So I want to make sure that if you are not ready for that commitment, just don't get into this. It's just not going to work out for you. You're not going to see the results that you want. Part of this is also coming from me being an educator in this space for 3 years now. I've seen dozens of producers get excited, see my videos. They see what I'm getting at. They obviously see the bigger picture here. Jump in with both feet, get super busy for about 3 months, 6 months, maybe even some of them up to a year, but then they don't immediately see 4 figures, or 5 figures coming on their royalty checks. And so they just think that it didn't work and they're done and they needed something right away. So they were depending on this paycheck to pay some of their bills or something like that. This is not going to be a good fit for you, okay? So you need to make sure that you have a longer term plan. And you can also be okay with slowly seeing those royalties grow. But you definitely need to, I will say this, if your family depends upon your current paycheck, you've got a wife, you got kids, and you've got a day job, and that is really, you're the primary breadwinner or a major breadwinner, and your work right now is really keeping the lights on. It's very irresponsible to quit that and then just pursue this 100% and go without a paycheck for a couple of years. So I don't encourage that. I don't recommend that. I think you can do this absolutely nights, weekends when you're not working. You will have to sacrifice, right? Less social time, less time doing things maybe that you enjoyed doing before. You might have to cut back on some of your recreational or, just kind of entertainment stuff that you used to do. So it is going to take sacrifice, but I don't believe that you should be jumping 100% into this when you were the primary supporter of your family. I think that's very irresponsible. I don't think you guys should be doing that. So just as a little side note there. Secondly, I say this is the one for those producers that are distracted by shiny objects or maybe have just an ADD business mind. And what does that mean? Well, 1 month you're pursuing sync licensing, but then you hear about this remix competition on SoundCloud and you could win $50,000 if you win that remix. So then you go dedicate an entire week to remixing some song, or you see this ad for how to get 1,000 fans in 10 days, and so then you double down on that, and then you want to get into Facebook advertising to find your fans, and every month you just kind of like chase something else, thinking that was the missing piece to your music career, and that's why you haven't succeeded yet. It's because you just didn't discover that next thing, which was the new shiny object dangling in front of you. Licensing is not exactly the most exciting industry to work in. Obviously, getting a placement and seeing royalties and a sync fee, that is very exciting. But just to keep it real with you guys, there are going to be months where this is just kind of a lull, boring, not exciting business to be working in. You're just kind of having to motivate yourself, having to push yourself into your studio, cranking out a lot of tracks, obviously maybe building up that next catalog or that next album, whatever you're doing. But there's not necessarily going to be a bright, shiny object right in front of you getting you super motivated to keep going. So if you're that type and you have that kind of mentality where you can't see, basically can't commit to the long-term vision, to this path in front of you, which might take you a couple of years to succeed, if you don't have that ability, again, you're going to waste your time getting involved in this business. You just have to buckle down. You have to realize that, I was just actually making a video about this the other day, that a big part of success I have found in my career is actually, obviously, focusing on sync licensing. But what does that mean? The counter side to that coin is that I'm removing all other distractions, and that I'm not thinking about remix competitions or trying to build fans or trying to tour or trying to sell my music on iTunes or anything like that. I really zero out and cancel out all of those other avenues for how to monetize my music, and I've doubled down only in sync licensing. So that required me blocking out a lot of other distractions. So if sync licensing is your thing and you really want to double down on it, I encourage you, block all those distractions out, unsubscribe for anything that keeps pulling your attention in all these different directions for how to succeed and how to do this and how to do that. I really don't think that you can just kind of dabble in sync licensing, when you feel like it, and expect any real major results to come your way. If you really want to do this seriously, commit. Block out all the other distractions, get those shiny objects out of your point of view, and just double down on this industry. Next, some producers are not interested in evolving or developing as producers, which might sound crazy to you, but I've come across them where they think their music is already great. They think their music already should be on TV, should be placed in commercials. They could already, my favorite one is when their wife or their girlfriend says, I definitely could see your music playing in a car commercial. Okay, that's great. I'm glad that your wife or girlfriend is encouraging to you and they really want to, help you go forward with your passion and with your dream. But they're not a music supervisor, okay? And they're not a music library. And they're not the person that makes that decision to make sure your track does get placed on those mediums that you want to see them on. So that might mean you might think where you are right now is A-level, top of the game. You don't need to go anywhere. You've already got the goods. All you need to do is get the library's name and submit it off, and there you go. I'm going to just tell you 9 times out of 10, you're going to stumble into a big rejection point where you're going to get a library that says, no, this is not exactly what we need. You need to change it. You need to do this. You need to do that. Here's a reference track. Here's a song that we like, that we really want to place for this car commercial. Yours doesn't quite fit that. Can you try to adjust yours or maybe create a new one that follows more in line with this other track? That's where a lot of producers, when they get into this business, realize, oh, this is really not for me. I just want to make my own original music. I don't want to follow in the footsteps of anything else. I certainly don't like being told how to create my tracks or get that kind of feedback from somebody else. So, and I'm not judging you. If that's where you are, that's totally cool. Just own that, though. Understand that that's where you are. You probably should just be creating 100% music that you just want to create, and you don't want to tailor it for anybody's needs, and you want to just put it out there to the world and hope that you can find a fan base or an audience that really resonates with that music and wants to support you in whatever way you feel support needs to be made. But in sync licensing, you're going to be told, nah, not good enough, or not exactly what we wanted. That's usually what you're going to hear. They're probably not going to tell you it's not good enough, but they're going to say something like, you know what, that's not exactly what we had in mind. The emotional tone isn't exactly what we wanted. The sounds that you're using, they kind of sound a little too fake or MIDI sounding. They don't sound live enough. You might need to change some of these samples out, or you're just not exactly nailing this opportunity. So if that sounds like a huge bummer to you, and that's going to be something that makes you want to quit and just give up and never come back to them with another revision of your track. Again, another reason why maybe this is just not the right fit for you, because you're going to have to face that kind of rejection. You're going to have to make revisions to your tracks. You're going to have that happen so often where you put something together that you've poured 8, 10, 16, 24 hours into, and you'll get a no, and you'll just get a rejection, and somebody will say, nah, not quite right. I remember one story. I had a syndicate member who was battling with this opportunity that we had, and he had sent me a track, and even in his email, there was a little bit of arrogance there, because he basically said, I was struggling with this track for about 4 hours, couldn't get it right, and then finally in the last couple of hours it all came together, and I have this other commitment, so I couldn't spend more time on it, but I'm really sure and certain that this will absolutely knock out the opportunity. So I listened to it, and I think it was kind of like an epic trailer sports sort of hybrid kind of a thing going on for the opportunity. Took a listen to it, and it wasn't right for the opportunity, because the client, I believe, wanted something a little bit more dark, a little bit more menacing, and the track that he submitted to me was a little bit more aggressive, high energy. Sounds great. Actually, it was very licensable, but not for this particular opportunity. And so I took a listen to it, and I gave him some feedback, and I just said, actually, man, I appreciate you submitting to this opportunity, but I'm just going to let you know that this is not a good fit, and I'm not going to pass it on to the client, because yours is not as close as some of the other members that sent me some tracks that really did follow in these footsteps. He did not like to hear that, because he had already in his mind decided that this was the right track. It fit what I wanted. He'd spent a lot of time on it. He was just certain that it was absolutely right for this opportunity. And so he did have a very negative reaction to my saying, no, I appreciate it, but no, this is not going to be something that works. And so I could tell right then, just from his reaction, sync licensing is probably not a good fit for him, because he's already taking this very personally. He's not interested in hearing what a client wants or how to improve his tracks to more better fit and serve the needs of the client. Because at the end of the day, you guys got to realize, whoever has the opportunity holds the purse bag, right? They have the money, they have the opportunity, they have the exposure for you, they have everything, they hold all of the power. You provide a very valuable asset, and you are a very important a part of that equation. But he who has the opportunity is king, or she is queen, right? So you always have to, in this industry, come to the table humble, ready to learn, ready to serve. It's kind of a little spoiler for one of the other aspects you're going to have, one of the other qualities you're going to have in this business, that service mindset. But if you're not willing to do that, and you think that your tracks are already there and you have no evolving to do, you have no improving you can be doing on your tracks, again, just another reason why I would just recommend just bow out and go find something else to do with your music and find another avenue. Next, talked a little bit about this before with some other of my podcasts, but if you have no ability to give yourself an inward reward system. Another way to say that is there's a lot of people that need external rewards and external motivation to keep going on their path. So this would be somebody that wants the red carpet treatment, wants a lot of fame, wants to do interviews, wants to have a viral hit and have a lot of people know their name and know their artist name and know their music and all that kind of stuff. And there's nothing wrong with any of that. This is not a judgment on that, but there are a lot of producers who are in this for that first and foremost, that they want to make music for the fame, for sometimes the girls, from the attention, right? Let's just be honest about this. Or they eventually see themselves getting up on stage, winning a Grammy, getting that attention from the world. And I'll just be honest with you guys, in sync licensing, not getting much of that. You probably won't even be getting credits on screen when your tracks get placed in a TV show. Can count the times that my name has been on screen probably on one hand in my 11 years in this business. You don't get credits for having background music, and that's the majority of what you're going to get in this business. Sometimes if you get a theme or a title or a featured track, you'll see a little something on screen that'll pop up for that. But that's the minority of the placements you're going to get. The vast majority for what you and I get in this business is we are the unsung heroes. We got background music or there's source music from within the scene, but there's nothing pointing a finger to our name or saying this music was provided to you by Joe Blow or whatever it is, right? So we don't get that. There's really no award show for us. There's really nothing publicly where people are going to acknowledge us. That's one of the reasons also why I do like to bring those of you that have some success stories onto my channel. I love really showing you guys off and featuring you because I want to create that culture. Even though it doesn't really exist, I want to create a culture where we do celebrate each other in this industry and we really do kind of give each other a little bit of a platform. I don't have a massive YouTube channel, but I do have some people watching me. And I want to put you guys up there on that platform to give you a sort of just pat on the back to say like, I see what you're doing, and I think other producers obviously want to see your success stories as well, because it not only is awesome for me to see you guys winning, for you to get a little bit of a kind of a public acknowledgement of what you've done, what you've accomplished with your hard work, but it's really motivating for a lot of other producers that are stuck, demotivated. They don't see the light at the end of the tunnel where they are. They just got hit with a really disappointing royalty check, or they got rejected by another library, and they're really doubting their path forward. So your story can really, or whoever's story it is, can really be very motivating for those people. So in sync licensing, I think having a sense of an internal motivating factor is just crucial. And for me, that internal motivating factor is the fact that I just love creating music. Is as simple as that. It is my drug of choice. It's what I get high on all the time. I love giving myself goosebumps. I love producing something, playing it back later and going like, I can't believe that I did that. That's just an incredible piece of music. And I love when I'm so excited about what I've just done that I want to show it to people and I want to show it off. So that's my internal sort of motivating factor right there. Obviously, I do like getting paid for my work. I do like being valued for the considerations or the effort that I put into my music to help add value to somebody's TV show, movie, or commercial. So don't get me wrong, money is important. I got bills to pay. I love being paid for that, and I know you guys do as well. But above that, and actually what's more important than that for me as a producer in this industry, is that I get to just do what I love to do, which is to create. I love the feeling of creating something that came from nothing. I think about this and it blows my mind and kind of throws my head for a spin all the time when I think about the fact that my entire career was created out of nothing. Like everything, like the money that I literally live off of, that I pay my bills off of, that I buy my food, that feeds me, that that gets me the water that I drink, that literally keeps me alive, came from ideas inside of my brain. The music that I created, these were all just ideas, concepts, things I stumbled across, whatever it was. But this was all created out of nothing, out of thin air. And I created an entire reality and an entire career, and a sustainable full-time income for myself from just the ideas in my brain. That still is very psychedelic and just wild, and it's very interesting, kind of a spiritual reality that I find myself in on a daily basis. And when you get to that point, if you commit to this, you can get to that point. It's going to be, I don't know if I could describe it in words what that really feels like, because it does feel like you're walking on air. Like it just does feel like you just created something impossible, and it's a miracle, and it really does feel like a miracle. So that's what's really awesome about this. And to know every time I go back to the studio, create a new track, I'm creating a new reality for myself, new opportunities, a new source of income, a new placement, that kind of thing, just new value. And all this stuff came from nothing, absolutely nothing. Came into my brain. I figured out a way to put it down on my DAW and just watch this just tree blossom in front of me. This productivity tree, for lack of a better term, that has really been feeding me essentially year after year, quarter after quarter, right? So that is the internal motivating factor for me. So whatever that is for you, you've got to really figure out what that is, and you've got to let that's got to be something that is enough for you to keep going. Okay, I'm not saying that, getting a pat on the back or getting some public acknowledgement definitely feels good. And it always feels good when I get a positive note from a library that I work with and they say, Jess, you totally nailed it for us. Like, you saved our butts on that opportunity. It was your track that got the placement and made this client keep coming back. So thank you. Don't get me wrong. That feels awesome. And I love getting compliments when I deserve it, when I've actually done something that's really valuable for somebody. So we all need those from time to time. So I'm not saying you'll never get a compliment or never need to be acknowledged for what you do. We all need to be acknowledged for that, right? But as I said before, there are going to be times where you don't get any of that, and it's just kind of crickets. So In those times when you're going to feel like you might be a little bit isolated, you're not really getting a lot of positive feedback, you're not getting just even a lot of anything, there's no emails, no phone calls, it's just kind of a slow period in the year. That is the time where you have to have that internal motivating factor to push you through those rough spots, because we all need it. It's one of the main reasons why I created Sync Academy, because I wanted there to be an online platform for those of you that might be in that sort of lull moment where not a lot's going on, and you want to just check in with other producers, maybe get some feedback on something you're working on, watch a tutorial on how to learn a new concept or a producing trick or a mixing or a mastering approach, whatever it is. I just wanted there to be a place for all of you guys to be able to join us and log in and be able to create or I guess become motivated as quickly as possible, essentially, because that's something I really didn't have in the start of my career. And when I had those lull moments and just a disappointing royalty check, not really sure if this is something I want to continue on with, I just didn't have a place to go to really to log in, or a podcast like this to listen to, or just anything to kind of give me that encouragement to say like, hey, it's all right. I've been there. We've all been there. You're on the path. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing, but just know that this is all normal. This is basically a part of that roller coaster that we all have to go in. So that's one of the reasons why I really do what I do here, guys, is to give you guys that encouragement to know that you can keep fighting the good fight. You can keep going for it. So last but not least is having a service mindset. This is one of the hardest things for a lot of producers to wrap their head around, because I think as kids when we were growing up, and maybe those of you that are listening, I started off with drums, played a little bit of guitar, but mostly drums was where I just identified that was my identity. I was a drummer, and I got pretty good at it fairly quickly, and I would get a lot of compliments from people, and people would say, man, you're great, you should join a band, you guys should go play shows. And then I did that, and I played shows, and we wanted to just be rock stars in our tiny little town, right? Play at the local pizza shop. We wanted all the girls to come to the show. We wanted everybody to think we were an awesome band. It's kind of funny thinking back, how small our goals were back then, but that's what we were doing. But it was a very self-serving endeavor back then. And, I think we can give ourselves some slack because we're kids, right? We were born extremely selfish as babies. And as you evolve and get older, you start to let go of a little bit of that selfishness and start to think externally how you can really help other people. But I definitely know that, at least for myself, in my personal experience, that in all those years of somebody saying, you're a great drummer, you got some talent there, you should put a band together, you should play some shows, I was never once asked or told or suggested by anybody, hey, where could you serve the world with your skills? Where could you make somebody else's life a little bit better with your drumming? Even when we would play these local gigs, like at a local pizza shop, I never once thought, how is this going to help the pizza shop? Was never a thought in my brain. I was just thinking, I want to play a show. I want a lot of people to show up. I want to be a popular kid in school. I want to have the popular band in our town. It's all selfish. This was all internally, it's just this narcissistic approach to what we were doing. But I never once thought about the owner of the pizza shop and thought, how is he going to get more business off of this? And I definitely don't want to cause any more problems for him, because you get a bunch of teenage boys and girls in there with loud, we were playing punk music, rock music. Could this be a problem for them? And maybe they don't want to do this with us again. How do we make sure that they get more business, more butts in the seats, and make sure that we encourage our fans or people that came to our show to go order a pizza or go do something nice for them so that they want to invite us over and over again? These were not the questions that anybody brought up that I even was thinking about. This was what was called a service mindset. This was a service approach that you should have now, no matter how old you are. You could be in your 20s, you could be in your 60s or 80s listening to this podcast. But this is a key philosophical and a business mindset that you need to have if you're going to succeed in sync licensing. Because if you're coming to the table, reaching out and wanting to partner with a music library, thinking it's all about, well, what are you going to give me? What placements am I going to get? What are you going to give me for consideration fees? And it's all internally and narcissistically focused, which a lot of producers and musicians and artists are, because they haven't gone through that sort of rough patch yet of realizing, man, just focusing on what's in it for me really isn't getting me the results I want. But instead, you need to flip that around 180 degrees and approach a music library as if you were coming to unclog their toilets. Just literally put yourself in the shoes of a plumber coming to help them out. Would you only be thinking about, well, this is what I need, and this is what I'm going to charge, and this is all about us, and this is what our considerations are? You can, but if you really want to get the sale, you want to get the client, you want to go get some business from somebody, what do you do? what do you guys need? You ask them, what is it that you guys need? Or you do your research and you find out. You do a little bit of pre research before you even reach out to a library, and you ask them, what is it that you guys are kind of placing? What kind of placements are you getting? Who does it look like your clients are? Is it reality shows mostly? Are you doing more sports stuff? You do a lot of film, a lot of trailers, documentaries, Netflix shows. Like, what is it that they're really getting involved with? And then take a listen to the current music they have, see how your music really fits in there, so that when you approach them, you've already done your due diligence. You're not approaching them and just spamming and just, throwing out your services to everybody on the block, but you really are focused on them and being very empathetic to what their needs are. Okay. So you really have to humble yourself to be able to do that. You have to see your music as your craft, as your product, as your ability to unclog toilets, essentially, right? That's what your craft is. And so you need to come to a client, and your libraries will be your client, and ask them, how can I unclog your toilets, right? Do you have any plumbing needs? Here's what we can offer. Here's how we can make your lives easier. Here's how you don't have to worry about plumbing needs ever again. That's what you do if you want to really get successful. If you want to become successful in this business, you have to basically get out of your own way, thinking about what's only in it for you, but empathize with them. Ask them what their needs are. Research, try to understand what their needs are. And when they need something from you, deliver. Always be there to deliver, right? And if you can't deliver, be honest that you can't deliver. Don't mislead them saying you're going to do something and then not. That damages your brand. You're not serving them anymore when you do that, okay? So it is basically one of those things, though, that I say, like, he who is the hungriest producer on a Curtain Library's catalog of artists will be the one that gets offered those very lucrative opportunities, because you're the one that's always on time, always shows up, always delivers sometimes. And I would say often try to over deliver. If they ask for 1 track by Friday, give them 2 by Thursday. Okay, that's what over delivering means. That not only can they always count on you, but you can always be counted on to go above and beyond what is requested. Just take my word for that. You follow that footprint and you're partnering with a legitimate library. You watch how quickly magical things start to happen in your sync licensing career, how the lucrative opportunities start getting offered directly to you, how you start seeing your music fly off the shelf into clients' hands. When you're a humble, hardworking, and service-oriented producer like that, that's a dream producer for a music library to partner with. So, with that being said, guys, those are the 5 qualities that I think, but depending on which one it was, you either have to have them or you shouldn't have them. And I understand that it's, I know it's not like one of those things where if you felt like one of those might be a sticking point for you. I know it might be a little bit bummer to hear, yeah, maybe sync licensing isn't for me, but I'd rather you at least deal with that now, right now, and not in a year when you've already dedicated a significant chunk of time, okay? So hopefully you can come to that conclusion. But on the flip side of that, my next week's podcast will be talking about who sync licensing is for, okay? So I definitely want to dive into, especially all of the successful students that I've already had come to me. I've had one student that had his over $10,000 royalty check, one that had the recent placement with Zombieland 2 for that movie that came out, countless producers that are getting accepted by libraries starting to build up their catalog. So I have a lot of successful students, and I've definitely noticed throughout all of those successful students what the common ingredients are, and not to mention the stuff that I think that I bring to the table that has kept me relevant and successful in this business, but also some of my peers, including all of the successful students that are now coming up. So in next week's episode, it'll be much brighter, much more maybe positive and encouraging. I hope this was encouraging as well, or at least more clarifying for you. That's really a better word for it. But in next week's episode, I'm going to walk you through the 5 aspects of something that are the things that you should have if you really want this to be basically a full-time path for you. And that's what I really think this is for. So it's going to be a much more positive, encouraging, and I think as long as you have those 5 qualities, and I think most of you guys, if you make it past this episode, will have those 5 qualities. It'll definitely give you more reassurance that this is definitely a path for you moving into the future. So that wraps up this week's episode, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate your time as always. If you have any feedback for me, any notes, suggestions, anything like that, please just email me, Jesse, Jesse, at syncmymusic.com. I love getting your guys' feedback. The more they hear from you, the better this podcast is going to get. So please keep that feedback coming. We'll catch you guys next week. Thank you for listening to the Sync My Music podcast. If you enjoyed the show and want me to do more episodes, all that I ask is that you leave me a review on whatever platform or app that you're listening to. It just takes a few seconds. I'll never charge for this podcast, and I want to keep it 100% ad-free. And your review right now will help me do just that. Thank you so much.